what inspiring singing. You know, I have always admired Sarah Brightman. Bocelli is an absolutely brilliant singer. What a tragedy that he is blind like that. And we can only hope that at some stage that can be cured, so he can see the beauty around him that he expresses out in his singing. You know, that particular song is poignant. And, you know, I was at a place about 2 years ago, and as we were leaving, they sang that tune at the end of the conference. They sang it, and they let a whole lot of balloons out on the beach, indicating everybody going to their different places. I tell you, I wept from that moment on. It has been one of my favourite, absolute favourite tunes, and to hear it sung by these top singers is, to me, what an inspiration. And, you know, once again, I cannot express enough thanks to organisations like YouTube that enables us to hear these things and see these things. You know, when I was younger, we had radios, and we thought we were pretty lucky to have them. And then, of course, ultimately, some time later, because I lived in Africa, we saw television sets, and people even used to watch the test patterns before we actually got the television. Then they had an hour or 2 or 3 hours a day, and then it grew from that. But, you know, looking at where we are today in the world, it is like that. It is time to say goodbye. We are heading towards one of the worst times in history. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, the Western world is bankrupt, and you know, all you've got to do is read some of the top men like Weiss and people, you know, like McIlvaney, who are a long time. I mean, their family has been involved in advising investors and people about the economic climate. And you know, Weiss's father was going before the last crash, and you know, he can tell you, you know, from his father's experience, you know, what you can expect. And this, if you ever look at a chart, any chart, and if you're a chartist, you will know that. I've got some pictures of charts here, but I can't put my hands on them in this particular video. If you look at charts, you'll see that there is a thing called I can find it here quickly for you. You will see that charts have a sawtooth effect. You can see that there, all right? So even on an upwards trend, which is sort of this side over here, there we are, that upward trend, you see downward sawtooths and upward sawtooths and downward sawtooths. Then on the downward side, look, you've got upward sawtooths and then downwards and then upwards and then downwards, you see. And you can see this head and shoulders configuration. There's a shoulder over here, and then you've got another shoulder over there, there's the head. And that indicates a problem, a testing problem, and the problem is normally about 2.5 times the height of this area here to the shoulder. And I've tested that over hundreds and hundreds of charts, and it usually declines to that. And you can see how it's gone. And these men are experts. This man here writes to me regularly and tells me what the most recent things are. You know, the Times, the Telegraph, and these newspapers are literally entertainment, you know, as far as I'm concerned. By the time it's full, but they're still telling you that it's going like a train. Of course it's going like, it's actually gone. The thing is on its way down. And, you know, if we look here, the monetary expansion, never in history as a nation, like America, expanded its money supply to such a degree that no wonder people are. And today that crashing graph there was the one of the dollar, where the dollar's gone. And because of this, you see it's a reverse image, you see how it's gone up there, so it crashes down one side, and the more money they put into the system means the dollar is less worth less. And that huge, I'll just show that again, you can see there with those brown sort of arrows there, that was where Lehman Brothers was, and look at what they've put into the economy since then. Never in history has so much money been spent. And the same thing in Britain. The Western world has blown itself to pieces over trying to save banks, yet it wouldn't put money into manufacturing anything else, and they let that go on purpose to overseas. Now, you know, when I say time to say goodbye, we are saying goodbye to the wealth and the leadership role that these nations have had for 300 or 400 years. And why is this? Well, if you look in Timothy, it'll tell you, the book of Timothy in the Bible, and it tells you that the wealthy people will see their money become corroded by moths. Well, there we are, it's happening. You can see it happening before you. The Bible is actually an end-time book. Believe it or not, it's the end-time book. You look at the book of Daniel, Daniel says to him, well, I didn't understand what I've written here, so what's it all about? And he said, no, well, don't worry, you go to sleep, and you'll sleep, and then at the end time all these things would happen. The book of Revelation and Ezekiel, it's an end-time book. All these books are end-time books. A large proportion of the Bible is end-time books, and I cannot understand why the churches are ignoring the evidence of the archaeology that proves everything that the Bible is and what it says. For instance, the first thing that I knew of and proved was the fact that the first city I ever studied in ancient history was Tyre, and what the Bible said would be happening to Tyre at that stage, what would happen to it, and what we'd find at the end time, and it all fitted. I don't have time to go into it here, but it's a multi-part prophecy, and who and what happened, etc. And you see all the evidence of that there. And then the same thing about Babylon, Nineveh. Then, of course, it went on to Persia, and then Greece, and then Rome, and then the 10 resurrections of the Roman Empire. We're on the 10th one right now, incidentally. And we can see it all happening. As a matter of fact, on here, Barroso says exactly what the Bible says about that empire, which was staggering, quite frankly. I only saw that the other day. So as you see, the Bible is an end-time book which you can fulfill. When it says you don't know the day or the hour, he didn't say the month or the year. So it's not what it does say, sometimes it's what it doesn't say. So you've actually got to start looking at this in a more serious light. It might be a decade, it might be a 5-year period that you can identify, but we are in a serious situation where Israel will not allow another nightmare to happen like Hitler rained on the Jews' heads, and of course they wouldn't. And I've been fully behind them. And here are some of the cleverest people on the face of the earth, and they are very clever. And they've turned that nation from being a desert, which Dickens and a few other men wrote about in the 1800s, said no, it couldn't support a huge population. And look at it today. It's a dynamic little society, but it is a little society. It's only 6 million, surrounded by 350 million Jews. So that's why I say those tunes are very, very appropriate. And we've got to actually start looking at history. I mean, you know, before Noah got into the ark, in actual fact, people were doing exactly the same things. I mean, some of the things I've said here are reflections of the truth, of what men have said, etc. I'm only reporting what men have said, and it has been hidden. But you cannot imagine on some of the websites the filth and the derogatory statements they've made, as if it was me who was making the statements instead of being just the reporter. But I've left those statements there because people should witness and see the guttural type of response that we're getting. But we've got to look at this very sincerely, and I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people talk to me, and there isn't anyone who doesn't feel that we're in for a bit of a shock so shortly, and probably it's going to be a bigger shock than most people think. So take note of those words. I feel those words are very pertinent to our present-day society. We're on the edge of something very, very serious. And if you look at the Haaretz, or you look at the Jerusalem Post, or you look at a lot of the reports, there's very few sort of military or political commentators who don't think that it's just a matter of when, not if, when this Third World War starts. I mean, you cannot have so many nations like China and Russia and all these nations rearming, and our nation's weakening. And you look at our navy; it's down to 20 ships, I think. We're going to battle to fill these 2 aircraft carriers, and they're so far behind. I don't even think they'll be ready for the time when they're needed, quite frankly. And this particular war will be very fast. It will not be like the other wars. This one will be very fast. A very fast war, very speedy. But the first thing you're going to see is a problem in the Middle East with the oil, etc. And that's going to trigger Europe into another attack. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope that you will visit this site here, which is really at the, as I say, it all comes from YouTube. It is really a marvelous institution. I wish to thank you for YouTube for making this possible. Thank you there.